passes. Can I get a motion to approve the replacement of an assistant prosecutor?
So moved.
Support.
We had an assistant prosecutor leave. I believe she went to the public defender's office in Hingham County. And so we're seeking to replace one budgeted position for that.
And we don't have a candidate yet, we just have.
We had a few that they were interviewing, but they have not made an offer yet.
Okay.
Generally, we allow them to make an offer, but they can't have a start date until after the Board of Commissioners have approved the position. Because keep in mind, all positions go unfunded when they become vacant, and you must reappropriate the funding for them.
Okay. Any questions at all? Okay. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? Motion passes. Can I get a motion to approve the replacement of 2 correctional deputies not to exceed step 3?
So moved.
Support.
Any discussion?
So correctional deputies is a little different than road patrol. Generally, road patrol officers come in and have completed their training and they get their in-calls and so on and so forth. The corrections deputies are hired, then they go through training. We have a couple that are retiring in July, so we're getting a jump on the process now. We were going to start with one, but one road patrol officer has recently left. So we're going to shift that to the jail for the time being until some of the other jail employees retire in July. So it's kind of preparing them for the retirement so that we're not backlogged or have extra overtime. We don't want extra.
They don't have to be a deputy, do they?
No, they come in uncertified. They come in untrained, uncertified, and then they go to correction school as opposed to deputies.
Oh, they go to special school? Okay.
Yeah. Deputies come in certified.
Okay.
So this is part of our bigger plan to get ready for the retirements that we have.
Yep.
Coming.
Any other comments or questions? Okay, all those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? Motion passes. I need a motion to approve resolution number 2604-08, submitting to a vote of the electorate authorization to increase the telephone surcharge for 911 emergency telephone and dispatch services.
So moved.
Support.
Any discussion on that?
So currently, and I'm going to turn it over to Angie and the sheriff in a minute, but just the high level, approximately the budget for 911 is between $2.2 and $2.4 million a year, and the surcharge makes up about 2.3 of that, which is set at $2.65 a line. However, to do any special projects, they have to save up funds, excess funds, and build a bank to be able to do those projects. As you might remember, they put in a new tower recently. They've had some computer equipment issues that they've had to repair. But when the amount that they're taking in matches very closely to the budget they have, they can't add any to their fund balance to build up any additional money to do these projects. Some of the projects that they have that are coming in the new year, next couple of years, are a CAD system, an additional tower in the eastern part of the county so that we don't have to bounce off of Genesee counties, police radio encryption, which is required by the federal government, fire pagers for fire departments, because we do buy the radios for the local departments for fire and police, and some server upgrades. And she will go into more detail of what that looks like. So an additional amount of money of 35 cents per line will be around $250,000, $255,000 a year. And I guess the issue that is before you is two parts. Today is moving it from the committee to the whole board for discussion tomorrow. And then the vote tomorrow is not to raise the tax because that is not within the authority of the Board of Commissioners. The motion before you is to put it to a vote of the people as part of the democratic process, and they can decide for themselves whether they wish to see it increase or not. And on that note, I will turn it over to the Sheriff and Angie from 911.
Thank you. Thank you.
Yeah, I spoke to most of the commissioners about this increase. Before getting into this, I would like to recognize our dispatchers. It's National Telecommunications Week. We are very lucky to have the dispatching center that we have. They work very, very hard, and they all do a great job. So I would like to thank you guys and all of our dispatchers for the job you do. The most important function in this county is 911, the most important. We have been talking about this since I took over as sheriff, and I do not want to go to a millage. Taxpayers are being slammed now, and they have been, all of us, for years now. So I looked at the surcharge, and Angie will get into the numbers and our comparisons. Most of all of our comparisons are at the $3 mark, excuse me, and have been for quite some time. We have not increased the surcharge in 10 years. And I remember when we went through that process. So it's not like the taxpayers are gonna see an increase in their taxes. It's gonna be on your phone bill, and it's 35 cents. When I look at what we've been through in the past few years, we have more expenditures than we do revenues. So it's kind of, we've got to fix this somehow. Plus, we have to save for the future. We definitely are going to need a tower in the east part of the county. So this is a complete public safety increase that we need to make sure everyone's safe. She will go into the different numbers and that type of stuff. I would not be here and I would not be asking for this if I didn't feel it was completely necessary. So please listen to what Angie has, and I think after you hear and see the numbers, you folks will agree with me. It's time we have to go through this process. So thank you for your time.
Thank you. Yeah. Good evening. Thanks for listening to this today. This is something that's very important to me. I'm very passionate about the 911 service and what we deliver for our constituents here in the county. So I believe Dr. Boggs and Morgan had provided you all a copy of the presentation. So I'm just going to Dr. Boggs touched base on a lot of it, so did the sheriff. So just going to go through it, and obviously if you have any questions or anything, feel free to stop me. The contents of the presentation that I put together, I wanted to talk about the need for the increase and what that the increase will provide. I wanted to review our surcharge revenue so you could kind of see where we're sitting with our revenue over the last several years. I wanted to go over the surcharge rate to comparable counties, and when I say comparable, I'm kind of looking at the population and going from there. And then I also put together comparables for our neighboring counties so you can see what the area around us looks like. We're going to talk about the suggested rate of the increase and just kind of do a little recap, and then go over the ballot language. And also, I had a couple letters of support that I believe were included in your Board of Commissioners packets from the Shiawassee County Fire Chiefs Association and our scale, which is all the police chiefs in the county. The need for the increase, as most of you are aware, we've done quite a few improvements here in the county, but we still have some work that needs to be done. And as Dr. Boggs said, we want to put up that additional tower eventually on the east side of the county. The one that we put up that we paid for or started to pay for in 2022 was $2.2 million. So you can only imagine what that's going to probably look like in 4 to 5 years. I'm going to guess we're going to be probably closer to 2.5, 3, probably, if I had to guess. We have to, our next gen 911 phone system that we answer our 911 phone calls from is through InDigital. They're requiring us to do a phone refresh. They wanted to push that this year, but I told them our budget was already done and it wasn't feasible, so we pushed that off to 2027. That's going to be $118,000, so we have to invest in our phone system next year. We also are looking at updating our fire pager system. Right now, we currently use a VHF system that goes off the tower. If you're familiar, we have a really tall tower behind the range at the Sheriff's Department. That's what sets off the pagers for fire departments and EMS departments in the county. That system is it's getting old. So with putting in a new tower, we can switch over to 800 paging, which would be digital, more reliable service, which would reach further. we have a lot of departments like in the corners, like Hazelton, for example, Burns, that have issues with their pagers not going off, so. Doing that, you're looking at $700 per pager, so however many firefighters we have in the county, it'd be 700 times $700. And then it'd be $3,000 per department for programming. We have 13 fire departments, so that'd be an additional $39,000. Our CAD system was purchased in 2000, so it's over 25 years old. We've had a lot of issues with our CAD system. As we tried to switch and that didn't work out, so we're still investigating that. I don't really have an answer for that yet, but it's something that's gonna have to happen in the future. The federal encryption that Dr. Box talked about, all the new radios that we just bought within the last 2 years, they'll have to be retouched again. And that is $1,250 per radio, which will be approximately $165,000 that we're probably gonna have to do within the next year or so to meet the federal requirements. We have to have a plan in place by October of 2026, and it just has to be a plan. It doesn't have to be implemented yet, but we have to have a plan to show them, this is what our plan is, this is what we're going to do, this is when we plan on doing it, so. And then the server updates, our server will be end of life in 2030, so just kind of looking ahead a little bit. When we purchased our server in 2023, that was $53,500, so in 2030, we're gonna have to do that again. Along with our firewall, same situation, in 2023, that was about $13,000.
You know, I can interject here, the important part to note when planning these out for the future is that this is more than they add to their fund balance every year, each one of these. So they're going to have to add to their fund balance for several years in a row to be able to take on several of these projects. So they're gonna have to outline which ones have to be done now, by deadlines, which ones can wait, and prioritize them by rules and restrictions. And then they're gonna have to save the money to be able to do that, because right now, the amount coming in is about what they're spending. So they have to be able to save up to do these. That's where this additional funding.
Yes, thank you. Continuing on the need for increase, we'd like to have like a third party come in and do some work on our CAD mapping system to get some center line and address points done in our CAD system. As the sheriff touched based on, the surcharge hasn't been raised in 10 years. The last raise is in 2016. But yeah, our operational expenses, including salaries, our maintenance that we pay annually has increased by like 182%. Our expenses in 2016 were 1.2 million, and in 2025 it's 2.3.
Lieutenant Norling, if I could interject real quick. What stands out to me when we say that we haven't raised this in 10 years is kind of what happened in our ambulance authorities across the county. They sat at these artificially low assessments, $45, $60, year after year after year, and then panicked when there was no money. And now they've raised them double, triple, and still continuing. So I think it's really important to know that 10 years is kind of a long time. So if we don't do these little incremental things, raise or, increases, then we put ourselves in a bind.
Yeah, it's about being proactive and trying to prepare for the
Yes.
future a little bit and not have to unfortunately result to that or panic how we're gonna fund something that has to be done, so.
Yep.
Just adding some news up in my head though.
Yeah.
Not including the tower, of course, and roughly accounting for inflation, it looks like you're talking about $500,000 worth of improvements, things you need between now and 2030. I assume in your current budget on a regular basis are these types of improvements. I assume that you've had to do different things over the years
Yeah.
for various upgrades, so that's built into the budget. Can you tell me, I'm trying to understand this. I know that the fund balance right now is sitting at about $1 million and it was flat from last year. So it's set there, but at one point before the tower, it got up over 3. How did it get up over $3 million?
So that kind
Cause
of
it
goes.
kind of went like this, then went boom, so we spent it.
Two factors that attribute to that. One was an corrective action to MERS, in which we gave them $550,000 that had to be credited back to them. And then the other one was in 2020, there were quite a few new lines, and those new lines accounted for 500,000 of that. So that's where they went up to that amount of money. And then,
We were holding money that we eventually had to give back to MERS, are you saying?
no. It's a long, complicated.
You missed that, Greg, just be glad, be glad.
Sorry, I'm just trying to figure out how it got up to 3 million.
And it was a payment the county had to make back to them over MERS.
And also during that time, the county took over payments of our MERS and also saved us money because basically we had to divide 911 employees from sheriff's department employees and get that sorted out. It was a big,
I assume we have about the same number of lines, so,
No, it increased from 2020 to present, that's what.
yes,
that was
that's
the
what it's talking about. So something, increased lines caused that to go way up. We had to pay a bunch out. What is gonna keep that, since we have about the same number of lines, from going up again? That it went up to 3.3 million. The
Right
fund
now,
balance,
yeah.
and maybe I'm missing something, maybe
No,
I'm being
you're
thick
fine.
here.
and I probably should have included that, but like, go ahead, I'm sorry.
I was gonna say, so I think what happened was in sort of 2022 timeframe, 23, there was a bump from the MERS payment. There was a
Well,
bump.
that's what you're talking about.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, so they had.
The
an
county
artificial
had to
increase.
pay 911 money
Yeah.
back because of the accounting of how the MERS
That's
is
what I
done.
was misunderstanding. Okay, so
It all
that's
came
what-
out of
that
our
was a-
pocket, but
That was a one-time thing.
Yes.
Yes.
Okay, all right,
Yes.
that makes sense, and that helped finance the tower.
And then they had the increase in the number of lines, so that increased revenue.
Everyone started working from home in 2020.
Right, I know we have the increased revenue.
And then after that, then they bought the radio upgrades.
Good.
And some other upgrades that they did to the equipment, and that brought the balance back down. But at the same time, you have this increase in the number of lines, so you increase the revenue. Also at the same time is where the expenses started to increase because of the post-COVID inflation jump. And they almost appear to balance out very
So
close.
oddly enough, it sounds like if we hadn't had COVID, we'd have had to do this a few years ago.
Yes.
Okay, that makes more sense to me. Okay, thank you for,
That's what, how it appears to track.
thank you for translating what Dr. Boggs said.
It's normal speed.
Yeah.
So,
And essentially, long term, if you look at revenue versus expenditures, we've been in the red for historically. I mean, we have done big projects, but in 2025, I just tried to pay the minimum, like what was required, what we had to pay, and we still dipped into our fund balance by $100,000. So that is money.
And keep in mind, were not included in the bonding because they have their own source of revenue. So any legacy debt that still remains is on them.
with respect to MERS.
I had a couple of, but you have more though, right? You have, I just had a couple of questions.
Commissioner holds out that question.
Oh, sorry, yeah,
Yeah.
Gary.
Maybe I missed it. Do they have any projection when they're gonna go a tower in the east part of the county? I mean, or is it not even on the,
It's something that I want to look at, but we kind of have to wait and see how this all plays out before,
yeah, it's
before
gonna
we
be,
can even
it's
entertain
gonna be
it.
several years, right?
Yeah. Yep.
Okay, because I
Mhm.
look at it for some of the counties over there and they get it from Genesee County, so, and they see raises and they kinda get on my back a little bit.
Oh, I know.
They have to save up some funding if
Yeah, I
this
know.
increase is still to it.
It could be what, 5-10 years, right?
Five.
I'm hoping not 10, but yeah.
Yeah, I mean,
I'd say more like 5.
I just thought I'd ask.
Yeah, I think it'd be more like 5 unless they do some kind of financing based on those payments, but that's more difficult.
Did you have another?
Tell him
I did, but I wanna make sure I didn't wanna interrupt.
Tell
you.
him
If
Lieutenant
you're not,
Rowland's
go
working
ahead.
on it.
I'm not, go ahead, I don't wanna interrupt. It's sort of a capstone, it's sort of an after question,
Okay.
so I didn't wanna interrupt what you had to go on.
And then I did like a review of our surcharge revenue for you, and I went back to 2016 before the raise had took effect, and just kind of went through and showed you, we kind of float historically the last, 5 years, we've been floating around 1.9 up to $2 million on the surcharge revenue. So I just kind of wanted to provide that to show you that I don't know, it's just kind of stagnant, kind of sitting in the same area, so.
Can I ask, I might ask them just on that slide, and I wanna first preface by any question that I have, I just want you to know, I can definitely speak for myself, the job you and your team do, I could never do myself. I don't want to speak for the rest of the boards, I think we would have a hard time doing your jobs, and we appreciate all the work that you do in this county.
Thank
So
you.
thank you for what you do, it's high stress, I know that, it's hard on the families, it's hard on you, so I understand that. And I appreciated the handout. I just had one question on sort of, you're mentioning the projects and sort of like there's two parts as I see it. There's the projects you have to do like the towers, right? And then there's just like the funding that you have to take care of employees, pensions, all that kind of stuff, right? That's a part of the maintenance of having a staff, right? To have a functioning staff, well paid, not laying anyone off. If I would, what I'd really like to see from it is if just show me a number that has, these are the projects we want to do. Add the tower, add all the CAD system, whatever you need in the project line, and also include your yearly expenses. And then in 3 years, if no surcharges increase, what happens? The red. How far does it go down in the actual hard number?
That's relatively easy to answer. So
Okay, so that would be
4 million is the annual budget of more or less of 911.
okay.
Subtract $550-some thousand from that for their capital outlay. That includes any and all things related to software contracts, maintenance fee agreements, things of that nature.
And that's every year.
That's every year.
That's every year.
And
Okay.
what's the number that is left is the total cost of salaries, including benefits, fringes, overtime,
Okay.
allowances that may have, that they may get, such as like a food allowance, mileage, things that occur. And that is the total number.
Okay.
None of those specialty projects, such as building a tower, are part of that
So that's in
$2.2
addition.
billion dollars.
So that's in addition to the 2.4.
Correct. The
So-
2.4 is what it takes to run 911, and they take in, what did I say they take in? 2.2 million, more or less. They have a couple of additional, about $200-some thousand of additional revenue that comes in from other things that they get that makes up the difference in that. But about what they take in is about what it costs to run it, more or less, within a couple $100,000. And that is to maintain what they have and only what they have.
Not even the work project. None of the.
These are capital outlay projects that are not included in that. So for example, going back to what Greg was talking about with the fund balance, when you look at the numbers and it says that we spent $2.2 million on the tower, that all came from fund balance because they treat it like a savings account. As opposed to how we do things on this side over here, when I want to do a capital outlay project for us, I plan it in the budget, I plug it into the budget, it's in the numbers that you present. They adopt an operating revenue budget, and then if they have the money in fund balance, they bring it to their board first, and then the board of commissioners, and then they pull it out of their savings account, the fund balance, to do it, as opposed to how we do it on this side, where we plug them in as budgeted expenses throughout it. So for example, Greg's thing related to, well, it dropped precipitously. Well, of course it did, because that's where they took the money out of to actually build the project and do the project. It wasn't included in their budget that was adopted as part of the budget you approved, because you later approved that individually off to the side.
So basically,
I was gonna say, and I don't think it was here or mentioned yet, let's not forget, this is a flat amount. And you look at how much is gonna come in, has come over the years. We are in the next 5 years, I'm guessing, gonna have to give some pay increases.
well, that's
And
right.
that is that's a significant amount, and that's only fair. Inflation's gonna go up, even if we keep real wages flat, salaries are gonna go up and up and up, and our revenue that's supposed to fund this is flat. We have to, once in a while, raise the surcharge.
Well, there was a period of time, and the sheriff can speak to this better than I can, where they went 10 years in a row without getting an increase in their salary. No cost of living adjustments, nothing like that. What was that?
It's actually 12 years.
12 years, when was it from approximately, do you remember?
Would have been around 03 or 04.
Somewhere right in there.
How did we not lose everybody?
We lost a bunch.
We ended up losing 15.
one stretch, we lost half the jail in 1 year. Corrections officers left in 1 year.
We can't have that.
And so.
And I think that, oh, go ahead.
When I started in government in 2003, the sheriff's department was the highest paid department in the county. Until when I became the county administrator in 2020, the sheriff's department was the lowest paid department in the county. In that period of time between 2003 and 2020, every other department that every other municipality that provides police services, their salaries eclipse that of the sheriff's department.
What's the inflation been in the last 10 years? We really added it up, but 40% maybe, 30% at least.
I think more of the point that what I'm sort of getting at is you guys deserve the best to have the best at your fingertips whenever you need it, your emergency services. I think I'm dealing, and I've talked to a lot of my township boards. I've gone around, I've talked to people, constituents. They all know it's necessary. I think their question is, they just want to know, like, they want to understand the drop off. And I think that what you're explaining is that not only with the additional work projects, you've still got to drop off in 3 years. You've still got something going in the red, right? And this is something we can't afford. Obviously, people dealing with increasing in their water bill, increasing in their electricity, their property taxes going up. Everybody's thinking about that. But as I think the sheriff had pointed out, you know, not having a millage would be a very good thing at this point for emergency services. And I was also noticing that the counties you had mentioned in the proposal, Ionia, I think, and Montcalm, which are pretty much our size, were $3, right? And they didn't have an additional millage. I think Saginaw County did.
Yes.
Marquette,
And
Berry, some of them, Saginaw, Clinton, Ingham, they have a surcharge plus a millage.
right,
And we only have a
surcharge, yeah, no, and trying to avoid that. Yeah.
Commissioner Haley, I don't know, it hasn't been explicitly said yet, but $3 that's the top.
Yes, that's the
So
max.
so
Yeah.
as long as everyone
I
knows, so
appreciate
it's
that,
not, this surcharge as the statute stands right now, it's not like these raises or increases are gonna be
Right.
continuing.
And
So
that
to
is
clarify-
adjusted for inflation for.
Correct,
So-
as it stands right now, there's no more ask after this.
So, and to clarify that then, so basically state statute, right, am I understanding?
Yes.
State statute says you can max out at 3, we aren't maxed out at 3 yet. And it's still not gonna be maxed above that because you've run out of space. So we're not even at the amount you can do statewide, right, by
Correct.
law, okay,
Correct,
Yeah,
and this
right. So
would
we
be
haven't maxed
the
out.
upper end of it, and that would be the end of it.
okay.
And of course, everyone's already talked about the fact that this is not indexed to inflation. It is not a
No,
property
that's true.
tax. It is a use tax. And a lot of people, I think, understand and appreciate the fact that use taxes tend to be flatter and fairer because you're getting some sort of a service out of it. You're using that phone, you're paying that surcharge.
265 is 88% of what is allowed to be leveraged. So you're looking at an additional 12%.
And not since 10 years, anyway.
But it's a fraction, it's
Yeah.
11 points,
Yeah.
blah, blah, blah. But yes, it's.
Okay.
But as you can see from the amounts collected, the revenue, and then the comparison of the surrounding counties, where we are compared to them. And I think when you look at those numbers, the bang for the buck is better, but it's still, if you want to do these other projects over time, they have to be able to start collecting it and saving it to do these projects. Because that additional 12% will not generate enough in the first year or 2 years, 3 years to do most of these projects. They're still gonna have to plan for it, and this is planning on their part to be able to do these larger projects. I think they can probably get through most of them that are required as we go through it, like the federal one. But any of the other stuff is gonna be a long haul.
And just to kind of also doomsday scenario this, you say if it isn't granted, 3 years out, you've dipped into the red, and then suddenly you have to make a decision about, we've got to vote to allow it again. Well, now you're in the red, it's going to take probably double time to catch up, right? So you're not gonna be,
That's an important
black,
element, and Eric and myself reviewed this, and I'm trying to remember the details.
So the issue is that there's a lag on collection of this in addition to what you're asking for. So to my knowledge, this will not, even if it is approved in the August ballot, it will not begin to be collected until 2027.
July 1st.
So there's almost a year, and it's just how the cycle works. And so there's almost a year-long lag, even on the schedule that they've proposed to you. And of course, depending on where it falls down the road, you could be falling further and further behind that sort of that.
And we also received some of our revenue, so we received revenue for 2025 all the way up until this month.
Right.
Because some of them pay quarterly or however that may be, so by the time they collect it and they pay us, it's March, April sometimes before we get the money, and then Tracy puts that back into 2025's.
Yeah, as you can see, when she made this PowerPoint on whatever side, this is review of surcharge, it's 1.5 million.
Yeah.
And now all 25 has been collected. Well, we're a quarter into 26, a third into 26, so.
And I just started receiving.
Yeah, and Julie and Tracy have to book it into the right spot.
Mhm.
So even if this passes in August, there's no new collection until July of 27. So now we're starting to come up against some of those deadlines that are mentioned in there from the federal government.
And we have to keep in mind, it's an extra $4.20 a year.
Good for
I
one.
wish my water bill would only run up $4.20 a year.
And I think it's also important to note too, like, it's not just benefiting 911, it benefits the sheriff's department because they provide radios, we do their encryption for their radios.
And
Our
local
CAD system,
departments.
yep, and all the local departments, the fire departments, we try and do what we can to help. Because, I don't know, we spent probably $2 million in radios too, so that's money that's not had to come out of their budgets as well, so.
That was my question. I think it's a fairly important question. So has 911 done things that statutorily, helping these departments that they were not required to do by law? Or is it all required by law?
It's not required, we can,
So
there's allowable and disallowable, and we can, anything that delivers the 911 service. We can
correct.
justify paying.
But what I'm driving at is,
But they can also, those departments could remove themselves from being a participating unit of 911 and go back to doing their own dispatching and getting their own money.
no, my point is that the service is not just serving the sheriff's department, the citizens, it's also directly serving over and above these individual fire departments and police departments that receive benefits as well. That is something that I think sometimes goes unremarked upon and it should not.
let me just clarify that.
I
so
agree.
understand. So you're saying they're not required to do that, they're just doing it.
There are certain
Nice.
things they're not required to do that
Okay.
they do, and there's certain things that even if they're required to do, they're doing all the administrative burden of it,
Okay.
right? And so it's hard to quantify, I would imagine, but it's there.
However, if they run out of money, guess what gets cut first?
Everything that's not essential.
Non-required thing, yes,
Correct.
and that would be unfortunate.
It would, because when you need that ambulance, you need that ambulance, and you wanna hope the radio works,
It
and,
becomes literally a matter of life and death. at times.
yes.
This, so I think we kind of touched base on that already, the surcharge comparables that we looked at, I don't know if does anybody want me to touch base on those, or you guys okay? So as we have said, we currently collect $265, we're suggesting the increase be that $3 that we talked about, so it'd be an additional 35 cents per month per phone line, so it'd be that $4.20 per year per phone line for the increase. We estimated there's approximately 62,700 devices in the county, and you do that by dividing it by 265 and by the 12 months, and that's where I got that number from. The vendors that collect the money on our behalf, they also collect 2% of that for collecting the surcharge and processing it and getting it to us, which is fair, I feel, so, but they do take that 2%. So, when we're saying we're collecting $3, we're actually getting $2.94 from that, so we projected that our new surcharge revenue would be 2.2 million So that would give us an extra 256,000 annually, is what I'm projecting, just from the surcharge, not talking about the other 200,000 that Dr. Boggs had talked about from other revenues that we get, so.
And that's pretty stagnant and flat, but it's, here we go from, wireless salaries and wireless training, are the ones that make up the other difference of about $200,000.
And the state of Michigan supplies that revenue that's provided from, like, if you go to Walmart and you buy that prepaid cell phone, the state collects all that and they divide it per PSAP, per 911 center, and they divvy it out that way.
Just a quick question.
Yeah.
I assume you've done some projections, projecting, you can approximate wage increase, the cost of wages, and Social Security, et cetera. How are we gonna sit in a few years? How much of this money is actually gonna have to go toward paying salaries if we don't wanna eat into the fund balance?
So right now we have that $292,000 payment for our tower, so eventually that's going to go away, so we have to look at that also. So we'd be getting that money back later on, but we had the payment for our tower, I believe was, trying to remember what year that ended. I think it was a 10-year.
Yeah, it was 10 years.
And we've made 2 or 3 payments so far, so we have about 7 years left of that.
Still,
And that's not the Wawasso Township tower, or is that?
Yes.
No, that is the one. Okay, that is the
so
one.
that might go away at sort of just the right time.
Yes.
Yeah,
To do a new one.
yeah,
Well,
exactly.
like you said, we hit a maximum.
Yeah.
And we certainly can't count on the fact that it'll be raised in 5 or 6 years.
Yeah.
So
I mean, we're
maybe revisiting this a handful of years from now, because 911's running out of money, at least we got this flat amount every year.
And we're kind of flirting with that, you know.
At least our property values go up a little bit, we hope, so we get a little bit more, but you don't.
No, theirs is a flat usage tax.
Mhm. So we wanted to start here with this process, raise it to 3, see what we can get done and what we're kind of looking at, and then go from there. To get I can provide numbers for you, I'd be more than happy
That's
to bring them
okay.
for you tomorrow.
$256,000.
I understand it'll go up.
More or less on a tax, whether it's a usage tax or a village across the entire county, is relatively small compared to when you look at school bonds and other things like that that generate substantially more revenue.
Yeah.
And just talking about that, we're almost at a line per person in the county.
Yes.
0.9 lines per individual in the county.
So I don't imagine there's a lot more bandwidth.
Pretty saturated, do you think, Brian?
I think
We've reached
Yeah,
the peak of our cell phone and VoIP usage.
probably.
I didn't do all of these surcharges, but let's say Livingston County, they're at just over 1 line per resident.
Yeah.
So there's not a lot of room for growth.
Right.
Right.
More business and industrial base.
Yeah. But even if there was, there's not maybe 10% if you're really, really lucky.
Maybe.
Maybe,
Every teenager already has a phone.
Yes.
evidently,
Pardon?
evidently, yes.
Yeah, so, that's
I do have
good.
a question for you.
Yeah.
So a surcharge for a company phone, is that based on where the company is located or where the person is?
Should be, yeah, the billing
The
address.
billing address. So several of you that have business phones, that's, whatever, for example, I'm just gonna pick on you for a minute.
Wow.
You have a business phone, wherever General Motors has its business phone mailed to its address, they're collecting that surcharge. So it's not coming here, even though you're working from home here some of the time. It's not, that money's not coming back here.
It's right here.
It's going to wherever the billing address is. I was just curious about
Yeah.
that.
Unfortunately,
Makes
yep.
sense.
And I feel like we covered most of what I had.
I just had one other question about the third
Yeah.
tower.
Yeah.
Is that no?
Second
The second, sorry. Well, the third, the one that we want on the east side. So like if we have the Wasso Township, or maybe I'm not right. Wasso Township's already got that going. there's a third we wanna build on East M21, right? Towards, or East County, East
Somewhere
that
along
area,
that area.
Mellon, okay.
Mhm.
If that doesn't get completed, if that's not in process, I
Mhm.
mean, kind of describing the strain on the grid that way. I'm not sure how that works, but like on a scale from 1 to 10, how necessary is that third tower? Would you say?
Well, I feel like, because over on the east side, you're looking at more of like the rural,
Sure.
spaced out areas. So, I mean, it's something that I want to do so we can also advance the paging system. Without the tower, we can't advance the paging system because we don't have good enough coverage. I feel that it would be a waste to try and update
Okay.
the paging system without that, because it'd be like, it's kind of like cell phone. Look at it as cell phone coverage, you know, if you get far enough away, or if you're in a valley or whatever the case may be, that pager's still not gonna go off if it doesn't have the appropriate service. So that's something that we'd have Motorola and the state kind of come in and do. They would come in and do a study and show me how it would improve the area, and we'd have to look at that before we even decided to make sure that it would be worth it. Ideally, I think it would be, because that's the only way we're gonna be able to move forward. I know Clinton's moving to the digital paging. Clinton also kind of helped us on the west side because they put in, I believe, 3 towers themselves.
Okay.
So when they're switching over to the digital paging too, so they're kind of a few steps ahead of us. But that's where I'm looking to go, hopefully.
So those out townships that are not perhaps getting reached by the Wausau Township Tower and the other.
Yeah, it helped
there.
a lot, but we're still lacking in like, Hazelton, Venice, Burns, over there on that side. They still struggle a lot with their areas.
And I think an important thing there is the county square,
Mhm.
but the coverage is circular.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah, so you look at the
That's a
4
problem.
corners,
Yeah.
basically, yeah.
You've got some overlap and you're gonna, yeah.
But Ovid and Langsburg got help from Clinton, so that made it their side a little better. And then we put that one up on West M21, and that helped substantially. Made a huge difference, especially in the city of Owasso.
So I think, but it goes to say that there's going to be overlap,
Yeah.
because you're covering the square area with
Mhm.
circular sections of coverage.
Yeah.
So we're not
It's
going
going
to
to be
be,
naturally,
yeah, we're not naturally gonna be able to cover all of our area
It's kind of
without covering other people's, or vice versa.
Some of Clinton and Genesee and Sagan are gonna get it, but
Yeah.
as we have, yeah.
basically
Look,
comes
it's
down
theirs.
as like an umbrella. So depending on how tall you go,
For hours.
comes out that way.
And the voters are actually gonna do it, so.
Okay.
We could talk about it for hours here and everybody's agreeing, if it's the voters the one that's gotta approve it.
Yeah.
In my estimation, it's 99% is gonna approve, so
I hope so.
that's my forecast, so.
Thank you, Gary.
Any further questions? No.
Well, thank you for listening to me today and
Thank
hearing
you.
me out on this. I really appreciate it. So, yeah.
Can't believe it. They
Thank
voted.
you.
Well, I can't call 911, so if they're gonna vote.
So, all those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? Motion passes. Again, the call to the public limited to 3 minutes, doesn't look, and nobody else, I think, around. So I think we are good, and the Public Safety and Courts Committee is adjourned.
All right. You guys don't want to miss Health and Human Services.
I gotta, well, I'm gonna take a break. The voters gotta vote.
Okay. Yeah, maybe.
Thank you all.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Sheriff.
You know, see if they can't call them 911, they just better raise it a little bit, so your chances of.
All right, let's roll. Let's call this meeting Health and Human Services to order. Stand for the pledge. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. Call to the public.
Everybody's
All right, I would entertain a motion to approve the use of up to $50,000 from the Solid Waste Fund, Waste Management Fund 230, to fund 2 household hazardous waste collections in 2026.
So moved.
Or
Moved and supported.
I would just note this is just a little higher than it was last year, about $10,000, but we have a new vendor.
Have a new vendor and costs are increasing for the collections. I wasn't sure I was gonna be able to have 2 collections this year because we were so late in finding a vendor. Fortunately, we were able to schedule 2 dates. They're not ideal dates. First one is July 18. Second one is October 24. We tend to like to go a little earlier in the fall because it gets cold. Summer could be very hot, but, and the money comes from the Waste Management Fund. It's a very popular program too, and it is part of our materials management program. And it's going to be built into that new document that we're working on.
And that's at BG's and at,
We don't have the second location determined yet. I may run them both in Owasso, depending on what we may look at Durand or Perry. But we do have the first one scheduled for Owasso.
Cinderella, there's a spill, at least it can't hurt anything.
Wow. So July 18th is.
July 18th is the first one in Owasso.
So Larry, why was it hard to find a vendor this year?
Less and less vendors are doing it now, because it's just the profit margin's getting squeezed. So the one vendor that we had been using, we have had for 20 some years, Drug Lab, got out of doing it totally. We found the vendor that services Clinton County and Saginaw County, so that worked out for us.
So you say the profit margin is less. Is there a profit in this?
Yeah, there is. Yeah, they have a site setup fee just to come out and set up on site, so they collect a substantial amount of money just to come to see us and process it and collect it.
But not in the, I'm thinking of recycling in the sites where.
Oh, yeah.
Right, so
There's,
no.
there's
it's
limited
setup
on what they
fees.
can do with that stuff. A lot of it is incinerated.
Okay.
Kind of hot potato stuff that no one wants, right?
Right.
So-
And it can't go to the landfill, and that's part of what we're doing with this recycling.
And there's a tire collection separately from these 2, right?
Correct. And that is going to be July 25.
Oh, right.
I believe, July 25.
what's done with the tires now, I know they can't burn them anymore.
Those are recycled. They can strip them. They can get the metal out of them. They can put them into
Oh.
asphalt. They can repurpose the rubber.
And where's the tire collection at?
It's going to be at the road commission.
The road commission.
It's July 25th.
And that will also be part of our materials management plan as part of the whole recycling.
That's always a big day in my house. I'm
Yeah,
like,
it's a
oh
big
yeah,
day.
get rid of some tires.
And just important to note, don't bring the tires to the solid waste hazardous waste collections.
Correct.
Right, separate
Yeah, we.
them.
Sorry, I'll have to announce that pretty clearly.
Yeah.
Because they're very close, one's the
They're very
18th
close.
and one's the 25th.
Yeah, we will spell that out as we do.
Load it all in the truck, you're gonna keep it in the back of the truck, where you go tires.
Yeah.
All right, anything else for Larry on that? All right, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, nay, and we'll see that tomorrow. I would look for a motion to authorize the health director to hire a summer public health intern at $18 per hour, not to exceed the grant.
So moved.
Gary,
Support.
moved and supported.
Long-time program with a partnership with the Cook Family Foundation to get an intern as part of their work, and it fits well with Larry's. It's gonna be probably somewhere around $18 an hour, and usually costs us about $300 for the person for the entire year.
Exactly what he just said. It's a long time program that we've had with the foundation. We get a fellow for about a 10-week period. And they will, this person's going to help out with materials management, because we're gonna start really ramping up our efforts in the environmental side with that program, but they're also gonna help set up our health fair that a couple of you attended last year, and some other things for Nicole's shop on the personal health side. So this one's gonna be kind of a jack of all trades. For last year was mainly personal health.
You're gonna need more backpacks. Those were gone in like 15 minutes. I swear.
The health fair.
Yep. All right, anything else on the intern? All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. All those opposed, nay. That passes, thank you.
We were a little quicker than public safety.
Right?
I know.
All right, second call to the public. Nothing? I just thought you might have something to say. All right, we are adjourned, thank you. Gonna get your moment.